It started with a single, thunderous declaration from Donald Trump outside Mar-a-Lago. "She's finished for good," he growled into the mic, eyes locked on the camera, the crowd erupting behind him. "Letitia James has abused her office for the last time." The press conference wasn't scheduled, but it didn't matter. Within minutes, cable news was cutting in. Trump, surrounded by his legal team and flanked by stacks of papers labeled evidence, began what he called his final strike. "We now have what we need," he continued. "Proof of political bias, prosecutorial misconduct, and coordination with the White House. This goes beyond corruption, it's a takedown attempt on American democracy. And today, it ends." Letitia James, New York's Attorney General, had pursued Trump through civil suits and investigations for years. But now, Trump claimed the tables had turned. What followed was a barrage of allegations. Trump's lawyers presented documents they said showed back-channel communications between James's office and key Democratic operatives, some allegedly tied to Biden's inner circle. Screenshots, emails, even internal memos. Cable news was eating it up. Social media was on fire. But the biggest shock was yet to come. Trump wasn't just going to defend himself. He was going on the offensive. Within hours of Trump's declaration, a 147-page formal complaint was filed in federal court. The defendant, Letitia James. The lawsuit, led by powerhouse attorney Mitchell Granger, known for his ruthless takedowns in Washington, alleged that James had weaponized her office with intentional malice, citing a pattern of selective enforcement, unconstitutional targeting, and politically motivated leaks. Granger didn't mince words at the press briefing. "This isn't justice. This is a personal vendetta, fueled by ambition, covered in politics, and backed by lies. And now, we're putting her on trial." More than just a legal challenge, Trump's team launched a media blitz. Conservative networks ran wall-to-wall coverage. A hashtag trended for hours, #JamesIsFinished. Letitia James, in a hastily arranged rebuttal, appeared visibly tense. "I've done nothing wrong," she insisted. "No one is above the law, not even Donald Trump." But the energy was different now. Leaks began to trickle out, internal friction inside James's office, alleged whistleblowers coming forward, and reports that senior aides were lawyering up. Sources told Fox that at least 2 former staffers were already cooperating with federal investigators. Behind the scenes, Trump's allies in Congress were preparing their own offensive. A House Oversight Committee hearing was being fast-tracked, with Letitia James as the star witness. The clock was ticking, and this time, she was the one under the spotlight. 3 days later, the political earthquake hit. At 9:03 a.m. a sworn affidavit was released to the press, filed by a former senior investigator from Letitia James's own office. The document, now known in media circles as the Harmon Declaration, made stunning claims. James allegedly directed her staff to prioritize optics over evidence in Trump-related investigations. Investigators were told to ignore exonerating information if it didn't fit the narrative. One line stood out: "We were building a case first, and looking for facts second." The whistleblower, Rachel Harmon, was no lightweight. A career legal analyst with 18 years in state-level enforcement and a reputation for integrity. Her testimony lit a firestorm. Trump immediately seized on it. "This is what I've said all along. She was never after justice, she was after me. This is criminal behavior, plain and simple." James's office went into emergency mode, issuing a curt denial and accusing Harmon of being disgruntled. But the damage was done. Multiple members of the state legislature demanded an independent inquiry. Cable news split into 2 camps. CNN cautiously labeled the declaration damning but unverified. Meanwhile, Fox and ONN ran red banners reading, "AG James exposed, bombshell affidavit confirms Trump's claims." Even moderate Democrats began to distance themselves, with one anonymous DNC source quoted saying, "If this holds up, she's toxic. No one will want to be near this mess." And then, just when it couldn't get worse, Trump dropped the hammer again. He released video evidence. The clip was short, only 47 seconds, but its impact was nuclear. Released directly through Trump's social media platform, the video showed a private Zoom meeting between Letitia James and several staff attorneys. The screen recording, allegedly leaked by another internal source, was timestamped just weeks before she filed her civil suit against Trump. In the footage, James could be heard saying, "We're going to get him. I don't care if we have to get creative, he's not walking away clean." The room laughed nervously. One aide chimed in, "As long as we drag it through the news cycle, it does the job." The clip spread like wildfire. Millions viewed it within hours. Even networks that had cautiously backed James were now scrambling to respond. Legal analysts were stunned. MSNBC's lead legal contributor admitted, "If this video is authenticated, this crosses every ethical boundary in law enforcement." Trump's response. He stood before a crowd in Ohio that same night, holding up his phone with the clip playing behind him on a giant screen. "That's your justice. That's your law and order. That's a political hit job. And now she's going to pay the price." Letitia James's office didn't immediately dispute the authenticity of the video. That silence spoke volumes. By morning, a New York State Senate panel announced they were opening an investigation into James's conduct. Subpoenas were being drafted. The hunter had become the hunted. The fallout was immediate and brutal. Letitia James emerged for a press conference the next day, but the tone was unlike any she'd struck before. Gone was the fierce, defiant prosecutor. In her place stood someone visibly cornered. "That video was taken out of context," she claimed, voice tight. "We were discussing strategy, not targeting anyone unlawfully. I will not be intimidated by political pressure." But the damage control came too late. New York lawmakers, once loyal to James, began backing away. Governor Hochul's office released a carefully worded statement, "We believe in due process and transparency. If violations occurred, they must be addressed through proper legal channels." Meanwhile, Trump's legal team filed an emergency motion to halt all ongoing proceedings initiated by James's office, citing prosecutorial misconduct supported by visual and sworn evidence. Even more shocking, the Department of Justice weighed in. In a rare move, a DOJ spokesperson confirmed they were reviewing submitted materials to determine if federal civil rights violations had occurred in James's pursuit of Trump. Cable panels exploded. Headlines screamed, "Turning Point in Trump-James battle, State AG under fire from all sides, federal investigation into James looms." As pressure mounted, Trump released another statement, this one delivered not from a podium, but seated calmly behind a desk with the American flag behind him. "I told the American people the truth would come out. Now it has. She was never after justice, only revenge. And she's finished." But James wasn't going down without a fight. Behind closed doors, she was rallying what remained of her allies, and preparing for a final move. Letitia James wasn't ready to fold. In a defiant move, she launched a counteroffensive, filing a motion accusing Trump's legal team of manipulating digital evidence and demanding an independent forensic review of the leaked video. Her team claimed the clip had been selectively edited to mislead the public, and they pointed to inconsistencies in the video's metadata as potential signs of tampering. "This is a coordinated disinformation campaign," James declared. "Trump is trying to flip the script, he's the one under scrutiny, and now he's trying to play the victim." But the counterstrike didn't land the way she hoped. Within 48 hours, an independent cybersecurity firm hired by Reuters ran a parallel analysis, and authenticated the video's integrity. Their findings concluded that the Zoom recording had no signs of artificial editing or manipulation. Worse, they discovered additional footage from the same meeting, with more damning comments. One clip captured an aide joking, "Even if we lose, at least we keep him busy for a year." It was a political disaster. Public opinion began to crater. A new national poll showed 67% of Americans now believed James had politically targeted Trump. Even among independents, her credibility was collapsing. On Capitol Hill, Republicans pushed forward a resolution to formally censure her at the federal level, while New York's own State Ethics Commission quietly began interviews with former staff. Meanwhile, Trump's inner circle celebrated the momentum. Behind closed doors at Mar-a-Lago, one advisor reportedly told him, "This isn't just a win. This is legacy stuff. You're exposing the entire system." But Letitia James still had one card left. She wasn't just fighting for her office, she was fighting to survive politically. And she was about to risk everything on a final, dangerous gamble. With her back against the wall and the media circling like sharks, Letitia James made a bold and desperate move. She called a surprise primetime address. Standing alone at a podium in the state capitol, flanked by the New York and U.S. flags, James stared directly into the camera. "If I'm going down, I'm not going down quietly," she began. "Donald Trump isn't the only one who's used power to intimidate, mislead, and manipulate. If this nation wants the truth, then it's going to get all of it." Gasps echoed across newsrooms as she continued, implying she had dirt not just on Trump, but on others in high office. Governors, prosecutors, former presidents. She hinted at communications, sealed case files, and political deals the public was never meant to see. "I have documents, hundreds of them. And if these attacks don't stop, I will release them." The statement was immediately interpreted as a threat. And just like that, Letitia James flipped the script again, from embattled prosecutor to political grenade. But the response wasn't what she expected. Within minutes, top Democrats began distancing themselves even more aggressively. Senate Majority Leader Schumer called the remarks reckless and deeply inappropriate for someone in public office. The New York Ethics Board, already investigating her, called an emergency closed-door session. Meanwhile, Trump's team filed a motion for contempt of court, arguing that her televised threat constituted obstruction and intimidation. Media dubbed it the Gambit speech. And then came the leak. Less than 24 hours after James's threat, an anonymous source released a trove of internal emails, not from Trump, but from within the New York Attorney General's office. And one message changed everything. The leak was devastating. Published by the Daily Ledger, the trove of internal emails painted a damning portrait of calculated political warfare inside the New York Attorney General's office. But one email, just one line long, rocked the nation. Sent from Letitia James to her senior staff, dated months before any official action against Trump, it read, "We hit him hard, we keep him running, and we time it for 2024. The implications were explosive. This wasn't about law. This was about election interference. Cable news cut from regular programming. Commentators were stunned into silence. Even mainstream outlets that had once defended James now called for her resignation. "This changes everything," CNN's legal analyst admitted. "This isn't just about misconduct anymore, this is about weaponizing a legal office to influence a federal election." Trump wasted no time. He walked onto the CPAC stage that same evening, holding a printout of the leaked email. "This is the proof. This is the truth. And this is the end of Letitia James." The crowd erupted. By morning, multiple House Republicans were drafting articles of criminal referral against James, citing abuse of power, election interference, and obstruction. Meanwhile, the New York State Bar Association issued a formal statement, "We are reviewing the allegations and leaked communications with urgency. Suspension of legal license is on the table." Letitia James remained silent. No tweets. No press conferences. Her office issued only a single line, "We are reviewing the authenticity of the materials." But behind the scenes, she was isolated. Advisors were resigning. Donors were vanishing. Allies were cutting ties. And Trump? He was already talking about what came next, a national movement to clean house in every corner of the justice system. But there was one final twist left in this saga. 2 days later, the political world watched in disbelief as Letitia James was served with a federal subpoena, delivered personally by U.S. Marshals at her Manhattan office. The charges under review: abuse of power, interference in a federal election, civil rights violations, obstruction of justice. It was unprecedented. No sitting New York Attorney General had ever faced a federal probe of this magnitude. Within hours, video surfaced of James leaving her office in silence, flanked by attorneys, ducking into a black SUV without speaking to the press. The image was replayed on loop across every network. Some called it the Walk of Downfall. Inside Trump's camp, celebration was already underway. Aides reportedly blasted "God Bless the USA" in the Mar-a-Lago dining hall as Trump grinned ear to ear, shaking hands and declaring, "Justice is finally being served." Social media exploded. Hashtags like #JamesResign and #TrumpWasRight trended globally. Even former critics began calling the unraveling of her office a lesson in unchecked power. And then came the most brutal blow yet: the New York State Assembly voted to begin impeachment proceedings. Speaker after speaker took the floor, expressing disbelief at how far the office had fallen. One lawmaker, a moderate Democrat, summarized the mood best: "We gave her our trust. She used it to launch a political war. And now, we clean up the wreckage." By the end of the day, James's communications director and 2 top prosecutors had formally resigned, citing loss of confidence and irreparable damage. Trump's final statement that evening was brief, but sharp: "She tried to destroy me with lies. But in the end, she destroyed herself." The saga was nearly over. But all that remained was the final decision from Letitia James herself. The pressure was no longer political, it was existential. On a rainy Monday morning, Letitia James walked into the New York State Capitol one last time. Inside, her staff stood in stunned silence as she entered the press room. There were no podium banners. No American flags. No cheering allies. Just a single microphone, and the weight of the storm she'd helped create. She took a deep breath. "I believed in fighting powerful men," she said. "But somewhere along the way, I lost sight of the line between justice and ambition." Then came the words that sent shockwaves through the country, effective immediately: "I am resigning as Attorney General of New York." No questions. No defense. She turned and walked out. Within hours, the New York State Assembly dropped the impeachment vote, no longer needed. The DOJ confirmed that its investigation would continue, and a special counsel was assigned to pursue possible criminal charges. Trump, watching live coverage from Mar-a-Lago, issued a final statement: "Letitia James used her power to try to break me. But in the end, it was the truth that broke her." Let this be a message to every corrupt official in this country: your time is up. Crowds outside his Florida estate roared. Supporters waved flags. Some chanted, "She's finished for good." In just weeks, the narrative had flipped completely, from Trump on the defensive, to Letitia James being forced out in disgrace. Legal experts called it the most stunning reversal in modern political legal history. But to Trump and his allies, it wasn't just a victory, it was vindication. And the message was clear.